Option C. Why it worked then, but wouldn't now. Welcome to the ACB Wrestling Talk channel. I am your host, Alexis, and being August 2nd today, we are around the time that usually on the Impact Wrestling calendar means Destination X. And with Destination X usually comes the opportunity that is Option C. Now, what is the Option C? Option C is when the X Division champion is given the choice of being able to relinquish his title for a shot at the World Heavyweight Championship, or he can decide to stay X Division champion and pass on the opportunity to challenge the current world champion. Now, this is an option C, that has obviously been a part of Impact's recent history. It was first introduced all the way back in 2012 when management, seeing the Destination X pay-per-view coming up, they noticed an opportunity. They realized that Bobby Roode, being the longest reigning Impact World Champion, TNA World Champion at the time, had run through practically the entire heavyweight division, and also realizing that Austin Aries was indeed not only the longest reigning X Division champion of all time at that time, but he was also the longest reigning champion in history, I think, at least, if I remember correctly. They sent out then Impact General Manager Hulk Hogan to give Austin Aries two options, Option A and Option B. Option A was relinquish the X Division title, challenge for the world title. That's pretty basic, similar to Option C. Option B was pass on the opportunity to challenge for the world title, stay X Division champion. That was Option B. Austin Aries, on the other hand, presented Option C, which was pretty much an amalgamation of both Option A and Option B, but with a slight catch. Hence Option C. You see, Option C would give both Option A and Option B to the next X Division champions in the coming years, but that would become a staple of Impact Wrestling. That every single year, nearing Destination X, the X Division champion at that time would be offered Option C, and he would be given the opportunity to challenge for the world title or pass on it. That's Option C. Now, why did it work all the way back in 2012? Why did it work in its inception? Well, like I explained in the backstory, Bobby Roode had run through the entire heavyweight division. He had beaten Sting, he had beaten AJ Styles, James Storm, Jeff Hardy, Rob Van Dam, among others. He had run through the entire division for the past 7-8 months. And Austin Aries had also done the exact same thing in the X Division for 300 days. So it made sense. It made sense story-wise right there. But why did it stop working? Why didn't it work so well in future years? And I find this very simple to explain. And it's the fact that Impact Wrestling and Impact Creative, whichever team it may have been at that time, whether it be 2013, 2014, 2015, you name it, whatever year, they stopped building a story around Option C and making Option C make sense story-wise, not only for the heavyweight division, not only for the X Division, not only for the entire title picture, but they instead used it as a crutch. They used it as a way of, now by default, every July or every August, every time Destination X shows up on the calendar, it doesn't matter if we don't have any plans, it doesn't matter if we don't have anyone lined up for the World Champion to face next. We'll just use Option C, because that's just the default. We'll just use the X Division Champion as a tool, as a device, and the X Division Championship by extension, we'll just use it as a device to line up a new challenger for the world champion. Whether or not that makes sense for the world title or for the X Division title picture, that doesn't matter. Okay, that's just a thing. That's just the norm. That's just what we're gonna do from now on. And the thing is, once you start using it as a crutch, once you start using it as a device, it really stops working. It really devalues the X Division Championship, because I see this a lot of times. I've read that the option C is being compared to the Money in the Bank ladder match. It's being compared to the Royal Rumble match. But here's the thing. The Royal Rumble match only appears in January, once a year. The Money in the Bank briefcase only appears in July, once a year. June or July of the WWE calendar, once a year. The X Division Championship is none of those things. It is not a match. It is a title. It is a championship with importance, with prestige, with lineage. And you cannot disrespect it year after year by leaving it vacant year after year when the story does not call for it, when the story does not make sense. So let's fast forward to this year. If Impact were to have Destination X this year, would it make sense for Brian Cage to relinquish the X Division Championship and challenge Austin Aries for the Impact World title? And right there, I say no. First of all, Brian Cage just won the X Division Championship at Slammiversary. He's going to call the title the Weapon X Division Championship. So it would not make sense. Another factor to it not making sense, having Brian Cage activate Option C and challenge for the world title if Destination X were to turn up. Brian Cage has not spoken since he arrived at Impact Wrestling, and in order to activate Option C, he would need to explain his intentions as to why he won the X Division Championship, only to relinquish it and trade it in for a world title shot. But anyway, that's just my take on the situation. That's just how I viewed it. I viewed it as a fact of them devaluing the X Division Championship. You might have another perspective. You might have different ideas on how they could activate Option C this year with Brian Cage as champion. If you do, leave them on the comment section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to debate. I'd love to have an argument with you in the comment section as to whether this would work or not. That's what wrestling fandom is all about, discussion amongst wrestling fans. So anyway, leave that in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe to the ACB Wrestling Talk channel right here, Monday through Friday, wrestling news, previews, discussion, all that type of good stuff. I'm Alexis Carrillo, and that's it for me. Till next time.